Welcome back to Now Hoops, the podcast where we spotlight rising stars and stories shaping the future of South Sudanese basketball. Today, we're going beyond the game to explore the foundation of greatness. I'm joined by mentor and trainer of Alir Maluk, Mark Abdul. Mark, welcome.
All right, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's pretty dope, man. I like this. I like this. Uh,
Yes, sir. Tell us, when did you first come in contact with Maluk? What stood out about him at a young age?
he was like 8 years old at the time. So at the age of my story is like kind of unique where you know I grew up. I moved when I moved from Nigeria. I was like one. I came to the States with my mom. My dad came when I was like seven. So we grew up in Houston, moved to Pittsburgh, and but I never really I was moving a lot as a kid, so I never got to ever really focus on a sport. So I finally got to a school where they had a basketball team, and we were there for some time, and we had a park. So I wanted to make the team, but I have no experience, no training, nothing. And this coach goes up and says, hey Mark, you don't have a shot. You know, so I just started. I was like, yo, all right, cool. Like, you know what I mean? I'm gonna start working. And I had crazy athleticism. I mean, I had my first dunk in the eighth grade.
How tall are you?
I'm like 6 feet. Uh, I mean, I can still dunk right now, every now and then. I'm 27 now, but I mean, I'm Congolese and Nigerian, man. Like,
Good genes.
the genetics don't. The genetics are just, they're there. So yeah, I was training at the park, and I just kind of to see, it wasn't really working out. I ended up playing for like a church league, and I mean, it just like all that working out, it just wasn't. I was like, dang, I might be, this guy might be right. So I noticed my brothers were pretty good. Like they were young. They were like, we have a 7, 8 year age gap. And so I say all that to say, like I started working with them. And so Lear was like 7, he was like 7 years old or something like that. And he wanted to train with us. And I was like, you can't, my brothers were older, bigger. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, you'll break in half. Like it's just not gonna, but his summer going into fifth grade, there was a day we were playing at the park, and he's the last pick as always the last pick, so just waiting his turn. And that specific pickup game, this guy hit like 4 mid-range shots in a row, you know, and then he did it the next game, and I was like, okay, I was like, I still wasn't sure if I should start working with him because he was very, he's frail, skinny, you know what I mean? He's lengthy, but no, I was just like, damn, that just, like, let's see. I mean, there's something here. And man, I mean, that just, that just, yeah. So since he was 8 years old, we've been, he's like a little brother to me. Yeah.
So you started at 8. What was his work ethic like? Attitude, um, starting off.
He wanted to hoop every day, like every day. I mean, he's one of those kids that, if he needs a ride, he's calling 6, 7 people to make sure he gets in the gym. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the kid he just had that it factor. No matter how hard it got, no matter how hard he struggled, playing against older guys and more physical guys, And I mean, I was 18 at the time, so I was in my prime. So I'm really, when I'm working with these guys in our pickup games, he is the youngest one, and he just wasn't scared. Like you know, dudes would yell at him when he dribbled the ball too much, and he's just like, dude, I'm not passing the ball. Like, he didn't care how old you were. His mentality is just from a young age was really, really just like it was different. It was different.
So how did you structure his training in those early years? What did you focus on?
I mean, really, my brothers were guards, so we just did all guard stuff. We did all guard stuff, and I was because I didn't have experience, I was learning the game while they were kind of like learning the game. But I was taking bits and pieces and just studying the game, and what's it called? The number one thing I always realized, like, guys who can shoot, you know what I mean, they don't have to have crazy athleticism and that kind of thing. So a lot of my workouts are structured around shooting the ball, the perfect form. You know what I mean? Like, having a clean release, no thumb, just getting all those kinks out of your shot. You know, I mean, he's super young, so he's not shooting it. He's not strong, but he was finishing the shot. He would kind of push the shot, right? But he would never use his thumb.
Mm,
So you know what I mean. But we drilled that like crazy, dude. Like, but I always had him in group workouts because I mean I had a big group. I would take my mom's van around, take my two brothers, take a few other kids, take him, and then we go. There's a court next to where he lives now where it's like free before 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. So I'd work my night shift. I work my night shift, come off the night shift, take my mom's van, pick all the boys up, and then we just we had a group every summer. That we were just in there. 2-3 hours. You name it, and then take a break, and then in the evening, everybody would just go to the park. Uh,
okay.
yeah.
So talk about as he's getting older, how he developed, and was he dominating middle school? And I know he dominated in high school, but was he playing organized basketball at 8 years old?
Yeah, so that fourth grade summer going into fifth grade, he played his first year. Played his first year in fifth grade. I sat down with his parents, kind of convinced them to let him play. That hey, like he's talented, and he would struggle with us, right? But man, when he got to play against the fifth graders, I have footage and documentation of all this. So I have his fifth grade highlight tape. I'll send it to you later. But I mean, his first game ever, this dude hits like 5 threes. But
Wow.
he's the tallest kid on the court. He's like 5'11", fifth grader, knocking down threes, pushing the ball. You know, like I mean, I had no idea what I mean. I wasn't a basketball guy, so I didn't know like what I know now. If I'd have saw him as a fifth grader, I'd be like, dude, that kid's gonna be something. You know, so he's been dominant. Throughout. I try to make sure his situations were situations where he could be more skilled. A lot of coaches try to make him back to the basket, and which I believe that's part of the game now. You have to have that, but I don't believe your game starts from the block. I believe it starts from the perimeter. And if you drive and it cuts you off, then you can go into your post up. So you do need a post game because you don't want to be tall and not be able to use your size, right? But yeah, I mean, so what's it called? A lot of I try to make sure the situations he's in with AAU. I talk to the coach and like, hey, dude, he's not your regular big. You know what I mean? Like he can shoot, he can push the ball. It might not look perfect in drills because he was uncoordinated, but when he got on the court, he's a hooper. You know what I
He
mean?
played for all Ohio Red, right?
Played,
AU.
played there his freshman year. Played there his freshman year. Played for Team Durant his sophomore year, and then finished off with the Wrens. With the Wrens, but he didn't play those whole junior year.
Okay.
He ended up reclassing up. Yeah.
That was my next question. What led to that jump? He should be a freshman right now in college, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, what's it called? He transferred to Lehigh, his junior year, and I mean, he just had such a good year. I mean, it wasn't the best year offensively because he was playing with other talented players, but the questions, about his motor, the questions about his defense, he was just doing it at such a high level. We won defensive. He was finalist for defensive player of the year and won first team all defense. You know, and he shot 38% from three that's that year. So, you know, um, Florida State, you know what I mean? They loved him. You know what I mean? And it's like I'm looking at it too, like, all right, like Alir did start school, he did start school a little bit older. So I'm looking at the whole age thing, with the NBA, and I'm just like, dude, if they can want you right now and you can get that experience now, that's gonna boost your development even more than just doing another year of high school. Like you're already playing at the highest level of high school basketball, and you didn't have the best year offensively, like you dominated defensively, like you changed games. You know, so this part, next year would just be really just doing the offensive stuff and that kind of stuff and like scoring a lot of points. But we know you can do that. You know, this will actually, now if you're 18, if the year goes how we want it to go and you have a really monster freshman year, then you're an 18-year-old 6'11" prospect, you know what I mean? Like that can play defense and he can shoot the ball. You know what I mean? Like you'll go to the league. If not, at least by the time your class comes in there, you're already ahead of the jump. So
I know he was like second string this year. I watched most of the games. He was behind Ewing. Ewing. He went
yep.
to Arkansas now. So first of all, how was that for Maluk going against him in practice? Do you think? And how would you look at his year overall?
I think it was positive. I mean, I think it was a positive because he was able to just get that experience. And I mean, he didn't play behind a scrub, center. He played against just going against one of the best centers in practice every day. And I mean, he had some moments in practice. The coaches would tell me where he would, you know, go at Ewing and dominate. You know what I mean? Um, so I mean, I think it was a positive experience. It wasn't everything we wanted. I think he could have, definitely played on shot the ball more, considering how well he shot the ball throughout high school. But I won't take it for, I don't look at it as a negative thing because as far as like his inside game, he was able to develop his inside game, and he does have a frail frame, right? But when he shot 60% from the field, at the rim. So now he's developed the inside game, and this year he should be able to pop out. So now he has both. I think he'll be a lot more dominant this year, given what his experience from last year.
Are you expecting him to start? I know they got a new coach with Luke Locks.
Like a young coach coming from the NBA, with NBA staff. I mean, that's what we're trying to get to. So it wasn't, the thought was definitely there, like leaving, but it was like, man, like, we got a dude, this dude, you know what I mean? Like he's an NBA guy, and I think when you look at programs like BYU and what they were able to do this year,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like and how like they were able to get that jumping. But AJ went there because what NBA staff, NBA development, you know what I mean? Like this is where we're trying to go. So why not be under a coach who's done it before and who's already understands what that's like, you know?
I heard an interview with Luke Locks. I could clip it onto this, but he gave him high praises. He sees, I don't know if you watched it, but he's saying he sees Maluk having a very successful pro career. He has all the
Basketball, I'm really
tools.
excited about AJ and Alir. They're both. Alir was supposed to be in high school last year, and he reclassed to come be a freshman. So I'm looking at him as a blank canvas, and he has a ton of talent and a ton of potential. And now this is a huge summer for him, and he's got to get to work. But he is a player that I think long term can have a really successful professional career. But he's got to put in the work, and he's got to get ingrained in what we're doing. And so far he has. He's been incredible. Great attitude. Good young kid. Works hard.
Did you? What games did you make it to this year? I know you're a busy guy.
I made it to about like 9 games. I went to Duke. I went to the Duke game. I went to the NC State game. That's where I met Nam, which is pretty cool.
Shout out to Nam.
Yeah, that's my guy. I went to like 3 or 4 home games. I went to a game against Pitt. No, I think I probably went to about 10 to 12 games. Good amount. Good amount.
What kind of player do you see Malik or Alir Maluk developing into when you look at the NBA?
I think he's going to be one of those, hybrid fours or 5. They're interchangeable now. There's no positions, but I see like I think I could see him being like a Jaden McDaniels, right? Like Kevin Garnett, one of those guys who just like they can make shots. They're ferocious on defense. You know what I mean? I think his ceiling, this is my blueprint has always been for him has been Kevin Durant. If you look at his shot and the high release, you know what I mean? Like
I see it.
that's where that comes from. So that's always been, I think if he's able to get his handle down, improve his base, you know what I mean, and just get more fluid with the ball because he can shoot it. He can shoot it, and he has the height to where he can shoot it over guys. We played against some pros last year in the summer, and he's going up against Alex Sarr, and
I've seen that video. What's the guy in OKC? Williams was in there.
Jalen Williams. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that's his ceiling, but I could see him with how much talent there is in the league, I could definitely see like a Jaden McDaniels. I could definitely see one of those kind of guys. Who else? Who else? Maybe like a Michael Porter. Like a Michael Porter. Um, but I think that's kind of like his range for the most part.
Definitely. So it's the summer. What's your focus this summer? What are you trying to get better? I know he can get stronger, but you said ball handling.
Yeah, ball handling and just improving his base. Improving his base. You know, what's it called? He has a tendency to kind of be high. When he has the ball, and he can handle it, but being low is everything, especially when you're 6'11". You know what I mean? He's gonna probably play the 5 again, so he's gonna need to be boxing out and those kind of things. But really that's really kind of like the focus is his base, is improving his ball handling. Um, those are the kind of things. I mean, I think his shot, he shoots the ball pretty well already. I mean, I just think just now he's going to be actually shooting him in the game, so that's going to be we're preparing ourselves for that because you go a whole year shooting 4 threes, and then you go into now you're expected. Lucas from the NBA, those guys shoot 30, 40 threes a game, so he's going to be expected to stretch the stretch of floor. So just making sure he's maintaining his form, and just but those are like our focuses: ball handling and his base. Yeah.
He posts the South Sudanese flag under like every picture. Um, he's somebody I definitely see in the future representing the country. Afrobasket is this summer. I don't know if you guys been discussed or if Luol reached out or anything like that. But what's his views on representing the country one day?
No, I think he'd be honored. He'd be honored to. I mean, we have talked to Luol, about that. I think the timing of it is gonna be the most important thing. But yeah, he would love to, man. That would be his dream, like literally his dream is to represent the country. You know what I mean? And considering all the stuff, his dad was one of the lost boys, so like for him to represent the country on that stage, and hey man, if he plays well too, like that's a bonus. Like, but I mean, we saw the impact that South Sudan team, the team had this year, and how it influenced so many people, just not in South Sudan, but representation of Africa.
The whole continent, yeah.
Yeah, man, like dude, it's so nice. It's I'm not gonna lie, like when I came to when I growing up in the States and being an African kid, growing up around like different demographics and whatnot, it wasn't cool to be African.
Nah, yeah. Back then, nah.
But now you got the Afro beats, everybody singing Afro beats. You got the
Amo piano.
piano. You know what I mean? Like, and now like what we're doing with basketball, with what South Sudan did with basketball, man. It's like, yeah, it's cool to be African. It's like it's you know what I mean? Like, and I think for him that'd be great though. That'd be great, like to do that.
I can't wait to see him put that jersey on.
I'm happy to be part of his journey. His parents, have trusted me. You know what I mean? With him, he has a cousin named Garang, who's in 10th grade that has some potential.
I seen his highlight. He's like 6'4".
Yeah, he's like 6'4".
You think he's gonna be another 7-footer, or?
We'll see. We'll see. He you just never know. You never know. He has a there's going to be a pipe from what Alir is doing. There's going to be a pipeline of players coming from the South Sudan because, as you know, a lot of the Lost Boys moved here, after the war and all that. So there's a big group in Pittsburgh. There's a big group of South Sudanese people, and Alir's like one of the older kids. So just telling everybody to stay tuned. Like Pittsburgh basketball is going to be, he's the trailblazer. And Pittsburgh basketball is going to have a lot of South Sudanese kids, you know what I mean, just following in those footsteps. So there's going to be, I just want, everybody to stay tuned and, what's it called? Most importantly, I just thank God because, a guy who, I'm a guy who didn't play basketball, who had to learn the game, and to say that, hey, like I've been a part of developing, an NBA player, like, that doesn't happen every day. It's only, it's it's only destiny. You know what I mean? And I think Lear's gonna do great things, and I think he's gonna influence a lot of people, and he's a good kid. And I think what it does, we talked about for Africa, right? I'm Congolese, half Congolese, half Nigerian. You know what I mean? I might as well have a South Sudanese flag right there
Oh
too.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
definitely.
Dude, I mean, I'll give you a story of my baby shower when I had my kid. My his mom, his aunts, and what's it called, cousins, all hosted my baby shower.
Wow.
So it was crazy, dude. We had a church gym. It was in a gym. What's the coincidence with that, right? And you have South Sudanese people, right? You have all these tall people, man, at this baby shower. You have the Nigerians, right? You got Congolese people, man, and it was one of the greatest memories. Is you know we're rotating between each culture's music, dude. It was like crazy. It was like you would have your Afro, you'd have your Burna Boy, then you'd have your Fali Pupa, you know what I mean, and then you have the South Sudanese music with the dance where you jump and
Mhm.
all those kind of
It's
things. And
traditional.
yeah, man, like dude, I mean, what this game has showed, has been able to do in my life and the life of others, man, is special, man. And it's just, I really do, I want to see, Africans, you know what I mean? I want to see Africans from all tribes and whatnot. Like I like seeing us all together. I like seeing, and I think, what the South Sudanese community is doing with basketball, with guys like Kaman, you know what I mean? Guys like Alir, guys like, Taylor Bowen, you know what I mean? That representation is strong, man. It's strong. And I think it's gonna inspire. I wanted to inspire people to be proud of, you know, be proud of where you're from, be proud to be African, you know, and stand together
Definitely.
for what you do. So yeah, man.
Big thank you to Mark for sharing your story and giving us that inside look into Alir Maluk's development, the growth, the guidance. It's been there from the start. Thanks to you. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, drop a rating, and share it with anyone who loves South Sudanese talent on the rise. This is Nile Hoops. Mark, thank you for joining.
Hey, no problem, man. No problem. I appreciate it.
Thank
Right
you.
now on the offensive glass.
Ian Jackson up top and thrown down.
Jackson, alley-oop, Maluk throws it.
Been shooting the ball.
Thomas with the dish and the slam by Maluk.
Great play.
And here come the Knowles.
Great play by
6 of their 7. Too easy that time for Alir Maluk.
Play. He's got a lot of banging around the basket. Look at that.
That's a great job.
On the inside.
Malik. Ball thrown
I don't know. We're here last year for this game.
to the tuck. One final time for Coach Ham. How about Maluk?
Since the Seminoles scored.
He's got a mismatch against Maluk. See if he recognizes it. Oh! Maluk said what mismatch? Maluk, Brown contested.
Just doubled, extra pass. Luke.
gift that keeps on giving, but he's doing it. How about that?